Oh. Test 1 2, test 1 2. Let me know if you can hear me, or if there's an echo, or if there's something kind of messed up. Can you hear me? Can you hear what I'm saying? Okay, cool. All right, good. So, I really wanted to write about this and to talk about this, essentially in a, I guess in a form that we can understand one another, and it's just like a video blog, really, because I've been thinking about this for a really long time, and I've been trying to frame it in a way we can all understand. So, what is cultural LARPing? Well, I think to really break this down, there is our understanding and our perspective, which is evolving. When we begin to decolonize as Indigenous peoples, we get to really understand what our identity is and what it isn't. And more importantly, aspects of it. From the perspective of the colonizers and white people generally, they tend to think of culture as just blood or DNA or skin color. And that's basically it, because that's their limited understanding of what it is to be us. And we know that it's a lot deeper than just blood and just skin color. We know that there's a deeper realm of understanding what culture is and cultural identity really is. So, to start this off, I'm just going to say, dear white people, I'm going to be brutally honest with you right now. I'm going to be truthful with you. And it's a truth you probably should have been told a very, very long time ago. You're listening? Nobody fucking cares that you think or you believe that you're a descendant of Crazy Horse. None of us think that it holds a modicum of truth to your claim. Like, when we hear it, we automatically think that it's bullshit. Now, I know that you have this insane connection that you've created. And you've probably told some of your white friends, and they're all like, oh, this is so cool. They might have gotten accolades. There might be some enthusiasm, praise. But none of us care on this side. Like, on this side of the fence, none of us really give a shit. And mainly it's because we've heard this many times throughout the years. We've heard the same claim from other white people when they come to Sundance or when they come to ceremony. And it's interesting because the work that you would have done at ceremony shows us the kind of person that you are. And you almost undo all of that stuff when you start talking about, you know, your connection to Crazy Horse or your connection to some mystical Indigenous person from the past. Really, it gives us like a collective sigh and an eye roll. You might have seen it too. But if you haven't, you should know this. If you're around a bunch of Native people and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to tell them. I can't wait to tell them I'm you know, Crazy Horse's great grandson. The ones that you don't see out of your peripheral vision, we're eye rolling, or we're kind of looking at each other, we're giving each other like the bullshit nod, like, this fucking guy. He was so cool up until this moment, or she was so cool up until this moment. But mainly we just think you're a fucking liar. And if you really believe it, we think you're pitiful. And it's kind of crazy. But year after year, white people keep picking Crazy Horse for some reason. And I know he's cool. There are other cool Indigenous peoples from their nation. But it's just weird. Like the genetic lottery, all these white people, just like they always roll on Crazy Horse. So those of us that are putting the work into reintegrating our identity to our ancestors know that connection just isn't blood. White people on this part of the planet believe that it's just solely about blood and DNA, and that alone is the thing that just connects you. And as if some kind of like Indigenous wisdom is revealed to you, like a knowing once you have that like drop, it's like, oh, I'm part Native, I'm on the in. It's like, no, you're fucking not. Your ancestor isn't a princess. They're not a war chief. And because you have this newfound Indian blood in you, it doesn't give you some kind of secret Indian power. It hasn't, and it won't change your thinking, because your thinking pattern is still that of a colonizer. And you're still stuck within the realm of colonial ideologies. Colonizers really don't know what cultural identity is. I mean, they know what they have to do to destroy it. They know all the aspects that they have to do to destroy it, but that's just kind of where it stays. And the fact that they keep pushing this thing of like blood and DNA being the only thing to claim cultures is crazy. Truthfully, blood and DNA is just one component of our indigenous identity. Blood, DNA, and skin color are just one component. And they're all kind of the same. They all fall in the same category. We have many facets and components to authenticate indigenous identity. Mainly these rely on community ties and kinship. And this is like where the real power comes from. And I know there's people who've been adopted out, and I'm going to address that in just a second. For colonizers, you might already have a laundry list of talking points about what DNA is and what it's brought in your life, and we've existed long enough, and we're all one human race, and blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. On our end, we've done enough to survive colonization, the destruction of who we are, the destruction of our identity, to tell you what the fucking rules are. I gotta state this again. We've survived colonization to tell you what the fucking rules are about indigenous identity. And it's not for you to get into this realm of trying to like debate this, because you're still learning about it. First, learn taking the information and the knowledge, and then, you can start on your bullshit diatribe about oneness and all that other stuff. But for the most part, just shut up and listen to us. Validation's interesting, because depending on where on Turtle Island you are at, it might only take a phone call or a text to verify or falsify your claim to Crazy Horse. And it's been done before. And when it has been done, and you should know this, okay? If we are checking your claim to your identity, to like this mystical indigenous person, Indian person, if we check it, it's because you've been giving us red flags, and it's because we don't like you. I just want to say this again. If we check your claim and it's false, we don't like you. And we're just sick and tired of hearing your stupid shit. So non-native people often get offended when we ask the deeper questions beyond blood. And this is the thing that I don't understand. This is another component of our identity. So when we ask those deeper questions, because we begin to explore kinship and these ties that I might not know you, but these things bring us closer together. So, and we do this actively. I noticed this is a commonality of a lot of indigenous folks from one side of Turtle Island to the other. There might be a few nations that don't do this, and I might not have met you. But for the most part, every nation I've kind of gone to, we do this thing where it's like, oh, do you know so-and-so? Or you're from this area. These things, when we validate, when you know somebody, you know an area, you know a moment, you know the people, you know the ceremony, it helps to bring and build these bridges. So I could be talking to a complete stranger, but we might connect on this level. And the distance that we have is cut in half because we have some familiarity with one another. And in those moments, we're gaining a relative, a cousin, a friend, a family member. We're gaining somebody when we do that. But white folks really get pissed off when we ask those deeper questions because they don't really know the answers. And we think that we're trying to devalue them, but we're in the really sacred space of bonding because we're actually actively seeking the truth with one another. The truth of who I am, the truth of who you are. Or we're doing our best to uncover that truth with one another. And because you can only bullshit for so long before you start getting caught. And we see this. We see this with Michelle Latimer. We've seen this with Joseph Boyden. We've seen it with the dudes at Sundance, at ceremonies. We've seen it. And it reminds me of my buddy. This is funny because it reminds me of my buddy Mark Tilson. He's a Lakota. He's a Lakota Jew. He calls himself a Jew-Kota. He's known in his area as like this atheist who goes to Sundance. And he's a lot more complicated than that. but there's people who know him, and that's kind of like the rep. He's like, oh, he's that atheist that goes to Sunday. He's the Jewish Lakota guy. And that's the thing, is that when you know Mark, you know more than just what people are saying, but it's that there's commonalities. I mean, let's say you have a drop of DNA, but do you have a tie to the community? I mean, because that honestly is where the real power and validation lies with us. It really is. And it's funny because when Michelle had claimed to be from that one community, I don't know if she just randomly picked it out of a hat, or she had some kind of ties in her past, but she picked that community. And they said, you're not fucking from here. At least not within the last few hundred years. I put out a call to some of my friends who are Mohawk, Haudenosaunee, Ongwahoe people. And I was like, what if I claimed I was from Six Nations? And they were like, oh, yeah, I guess we would accept you. I don't know if anyone would believe us, but we would claim you. And me even pointing that question out when I'm, from Bikani and I got roots up in Fort Chip, it's like, it's weird because I know where my base is and I know where my home is. I know who I am. But it's really weird because, like, even then, when you say you're from an area and someone else is from that area, they can do a background check on you to see if you are a good person. And it's not in the terms of like lateral violence. It's more of like, is this person really, really good or not? Like, there's gossip that follows everybody. And I'm at the point now where I'm not angry about white people not understanding this reality. And I kind of pity them in a little bit, but not entirely, because I think a lot of these people are really vile human beings, like gigantic pieces of shit. And here's why. Because they commodify our identity into certain aspects, like what they can make money from, what they can get their own personal growth from. They don't know. They fall into the spectrum of people. And this is the cultural LARPing I was talking about earlier. So I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do that. So cultural, like LARPers, let's go cosplayers. When white people get into our communities, so there's kind of like a spectrum of these Pretendians. I generally have them as cultural cosplayers, or like further down the road as cultural LARPers. And so these are cosplayers. Cosplayers tend to put on these really cool get-ups, and it's fun because they're playing something. And the shit's pretty cool, Like, they do a lot of work. But if you were to ever ask a cosplayer, like, are you that alien creature from Minecraft? They're gonna say no. They're, the thing from Stranger Things, is that really you? They're like, no, that's just a costume I'm wearing. And I look at this specific thing as the lady from Yellowstone, or whatever that shows with Kevin Costner, that Asian lady. She just said she was native to get the part. I don't think she followed up with saying she's from the community or anything. She just said, yeah, I'm part native. And I hope that's where the conversation ended with her. I hope she didn't go any further than that. But it's really just doing what she could to get a job, and that was it. And it's still bad. I'm not saying it's not it's not saying it's not a terrible thing. It sucks that she took an actual job for a native person. I'm hoping she was when she was pressed, she didn't say what, Asians can't be natives too? I hope she didn't do that. But just to randomly say, yeah, I'm native, and then give off a arbitrary tribe name. And I think she just said she was Cherokee or something. But yeah, that's cosplayers. Cosplayers will put the image on, but they're not the image. If you can understand that. That's just like dipping their toes into it. It's the guy claiming to be Crazy Horse. It's the, whatever. This is LARPing, though. I don't think there's a better, you fully immerse yourself in it. So this is when I see this, I really see Boyden, because Boyden got the lingo down. He they come in to our communities and they learn our mannerisms. They learn kind of how we are, and they integrate that into their personalities. LARPers, in this sense, take all their shit off when they're done. You know, when they're done being LARPers, it's like from 3 to 5 to do the battle. Boy didn't have to do that 24/7. You know, like he fully had to be in LARP mode all the time. Like this dude here. I'm pretty sure if these guys could fake a res accent, they would totally fake a res accent. You know? Like they wouldn't say Ganawage, they'd be like Ganawage. Like, they would totally get into it. It's fucking crazy. So like when I see LARPers, I see these pretenders coming in, and these guys and gals and people fully are doing this not in the goodness of their heart, though. They're doing it because they want something from us. They're commodifying our identity to get something from us, and they go all out. That's like whenever Boyden says all my relations, you know, or if they've learned like how to say it in Matakiapi or Matakiasan, you know, like, ugh. And this would be like Burning Man. So imagine being like that 24/7, like all the time, just stuck in that mode because that is what's getting you money. That is what's putting, you know, food on your table. That's essentially what LARPing is. Cultural LARPers never turn off. They're always on, and they're always taking things from us. You know, you have to really be careful about the places that you're in with them because they're going to use all of it. It's going to go somewhere in the memory bank. It's going to go on like a file, and then they're going to pull it out and use it later on. Oh, you like the shirt? Thank you. All right, so there's social capital that they gain, that they gain when they're in with us, and then we begin to validate and say, "Oh, this guy's pretty cool." And that's essentially what they're after. They're mining to get that knowledge from who we are, but also getting that social capital, so they can use our names, or we can say like that person's a good person, and they get that credibility. And it's dangerous because they're just going to keep leeching off and going from community to community to community, giving nothing back. You know, there's no you know, sharing in this at all. It's all just one way. It's all for their own personal glory. Why they're vile though? It's so, like, so I shot something with Michelle Latimer in Vice, and we went to residential school, and I shared a story of my mother who wasn't allowed to have any connection with her brother. And it's a powerful story. It still gets to me. I still remember the first time I heard it. Didn't make any sense when I was a kid, but as I got older, I got to understand how much Canada like hates our fucking people, and they wanted to kill all of us, make us hate ourselves. And it was about my mom and her brother, and they weren't allowed to talk to each other. They weren't allowed to look at each other. And he crafted this ring for her. I think it was out of like Play-Doh or something. And as he was leaving class, and I was leaving class, my mom wasn't allowed to look, and she was looking at her desk. He walked by and he dropped this ring on her desk. And it was the only way they could share affection with one another. I don't have a relationship with my father because of residential schools. Like, it's one of the things. Don't have one at all with him. It really screwed him up. I may never have a relationship with him because of it. Because of what it did to him. I think of all my uncles, um, cousins, and extended family that ended up drinking themselves to death or using until they died or just straight up killed themselves. And when I was a kid, and then I was a kid looking at a suicide note of a uncle who passed away, and he talked about the residential schools. And there's an interview that Michelle had done saying our grandparents went to residential schools. Like our grandparents. Now, if you think she's indigenous, you would be like, oh shit, that's our grandparents. Like she knows, but she doesn't. Like, her connection is like in the fucking like 1700s, 1600s. Her grandparents definitely did not go into the residential schools. And I was so floored by that. Like to say that is so, I don't know. I don't really know the words to really express how fucked up that is. Like to really fully take our story, to really fully take that from my mother. The people that died in the schools and the people that died after because of the demons, those are our sacred dead. Because they soldiered on as best as they could with as much fucking dysfunction that was placed into them. I don't know. If I had a Jewish ancestor from the 1600s, I don't think I would ever say that the Holocaust really, like my grandparents were in the Holocaust. Like the Jewish Holocaust. There's no way I could say that. I have some Japanese blood in me on my dad's side. And generations back. There's no way I could say that the bomb dropped on Hiroshima really fucked up my people, like my grandparents. My grandparents were really messed up by the atomic bomb. I have no connection to that. I have like zero connection to that. It doesn't. I don't know. It's such an interesting and crazy thing. And some of these people are vile. They're just vile, shitty human beings. In the sense that, like, and I'm going to get around to people who've been adopted out because I talked about connection to your culture, connection to your community, connection to your family. These help to really deepen our understanding of ourselves. They really do. I mean, when you know the history of your community in the area and you can trace stories back to like creation, or you go to a sacred site and you're told by an elder about that sacred site. It's like, wow, man, I feel like there's a gigantic piece of me that's missing that's there now. I feel like my ancestors who were putting together this medicine wheel, not like the medicine wheel of the 4 colors, but the 6 of gates at the B medicine wheel. There was a part of that they were thinking of me. They're thinking of like my daughter. They're thinking of my mother. They might not even met them, but they're thinking of these people in the future. We would come back to these areas, we would pray, and we would reconnect ourselves. And I'm still learning that. I'm not the most culturally connected Sixakatsutepi person or Denisutane. These are still, there's a lot of our history to myself that's a mystery. And every day I have to decolonize. Every day I have to push myself to learn words and histories. Even my own family, my own people. But where it becomes vile is this. There's going to be a crop of white people, non-native people, that are going to claim to be 60 scoop. They're going to claim to be taken from Child and Family Services. And as an Indigenous person, if you feel estranged from your culture, from your identity, and from your people, because they took you, or they took your mom, or they took your grandma, or your grandpa, that's valid for us. That's totally valid for us. Because we remember our cousins that were taken. We remember the summer that we just didn't see them anymore, the winter or the fall that we didn't see them. And we remember when we connected with them again, and they were a little bit different. And it wasn't always like a good, healthy change that we've seen in them. But we remember that. And so when people say like, oh, I was adopted out, it's like, oh, that makes sense. That's your validation though. And it's strong. And you don't need anything else but that. But here's the fucked up part with these vile people. They're going to claim that exact same story. Even though they know. And they're going to fucking know that they're not connected back to the community. There's going to be this, they're going to try to play this air of like, well, I didn't know. But just like they know that they don't have any relatives for the past couple hundred years, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to say, oh, I was adopted out. And it's so fucked up when you think about that. If you are an Indigenous person and you're thinking about like, you are adopted out and you're watching this, you know, that alone should piss you off that they are going to do that because they commodify parts of our identity and parts of our history. And it hasn't ever stopped. I mean, that's all they really do when they come in. And it's not going to stop, but it is going to take different steps. It's going to change a little bit. And as CFS child apprehensions become more and more known into the Canadian psyche and mainstream, they're going to steal those stories too. And they're going to do the exact same things as they're doing right now. And we need to put these barriers there to help protect ourselves. Because some people actually did get really fucked up. Emotionally triggered, traumatized by the revelations of, you know, the disingenuous claims of Michelle Latimer and Joseph Boyden. Even fucking Grey Owl. Like, we see ourselves succeed in our own stories. So there's the guys, Marmar Gaming. Like, when he's getting bigger, we see ourselves, you know? When we see an actor and actress out there, we see ourselves. When we see these people who are... They don't really look like me. They don't really look like, you know, dark skin, dark hair, whatever. We still have a sense of pride that they're doing it, that they're making moves. You know, there's a part of us that's like, yeah, at least I'm there. You know, at least I see myself. But with these people, they don't give a shit. They don't care. Some people say that they're pitiful and they're crazy. They're not crazy. Crazy is like, it's such a cheap card to play. You know, they call those shooters, those mass shooters, those white mass shooters crazy. And I don't know how true that really is. It just seems like we play that card for them so they don't have to take any personal responsibility for their choices. And sure, maybe some of them are. But these other people, they definitely know what they're doing. And it's just sad, you know, because they are talented. Boyden's a talented writer. Vladimir's got some talent behind the camera as a showrunner. The authenticity should have been there. And there's nothing wrong with that either, you know? Saying like, oh, I might be connected to like a couple hundred years ago. And that's good. At least you're being straight up with us, you know? At least you're being truthful. And I think that's all we really needed and wanted from these people. But as for like my relatives who have been adopted out and they're, you know, watching this, you don't need any permission to tell you to come home. Just come home. And if you're so, you know, cut off from your own people, your own history, and it's just a big fucking muck, you just look at it and it's just messy. A lot of our nations adopted people, you know. Blackfoots did it a lot. We stole women and we took their kids too, you know. If someone was sick, we would take them. We would take them in. And I know this truth in my travels of people welcoming you into their nation or their societies or even having their clan opening up space. You might not be part of their clan, but opening up space for you to exist and be. And that's there's nothing wrong with that, you know? If you had a nation, if you came from a nation and you spoke the language and you knew everything about your identity. And our people did this. Like, our people did this forever. Since for fucking ever. You marry someone else from a different nation, you go, either they move in with your people or you move in with their people. And when you move in with their people, you learn everything about their way of life, their view on life itself, how to conduct yourself as a person, a good person, the protocols, everything. And that is essentially what you're going to be doing now. So if you've been adopted out and you can't really trace it, but you know it's there, then go to these other nations. You know? Go to the neighboring nations. If you tell them your story, I guarantee you they have similar stories. They had a kid, fucking CFS uses like the widest parameters to apprehend children, and they take our kids and we never see them again. They'll have that story. And you coming back, or you going to these communities or community, is powerful, because that heals them as it heals yourself. Which is why we need to protect ourselves. Because if we keep having these people come in and there's no checks or balances with them, our communities are going to start to push more and more people out saying, no, you're not going to come in because we've been fucking burned one too many times. And they have every right to do that. You know? Yeah, so I'm just going to pause for a second.